We turn now to the issue of eminent domain. There are 3 large residential buildings in the footprint of the project, and every apartment in all 3 buildings has been sold to the developer except for one. That's where Daniel Goldstein, spokesperson for Develop Don't Destroy, lives with his girlfriend, Shabnam Merchant.
I lived in Brooklyn about 12 years now. I decided to start looking for a place to buy, and I finally decided on this apartment and moved in May of 2003. By August '03, there were rumors of this project, and it was unveiled officially in December '03. Some of the owners and tenants living in the proposed footprint of the project started meeting and were concerned about what became clear was the proposed use of condemnation or eminent domain to take their properties, their homes. And out of those meetings, eventually what formed was Develop Don't Destroy Brooklyn. I got a call from Forest City Radnor. They offered me the same amount of money they offered my neighbors, and I said I wasn't interested. So the project was announced December '03, and I think by that summer, many of the condo owners had come to an agreement. I kept getting calls every week or so from the condo board president saying, oh, the negotiation's going well, and here's where we're at, and maybe you want to join in. It turned out later that he had signed an agreement to try to get me to sell rather than him just being nice to me. And the way that they negotiated is Ratner sort of said, you know, either you all take this deal or there's no deal. And that pits neighbor against neighbor. Once they signed their agreement with Forest City Radnor, once my neighbors did, they barely spoke to me after that. I didn't choose to live in an empty building or an empty block. But that's what I have right now. It's not ideal, but it is what it is.
There was a time when he got stuck in the elevator, and there was no one to hear the alarm in the building, and it was a very, very hot day, and he was in there for 2.5 hours. I have never seen him so terrified when he came out, and sort of after that I felt, you know, I should be here. This is now my home. Sometimes when Daniel has to go away somewhere, I get a little creeped out being all by myself in the building. The Kilo decision happened in, I believe, June 2005, and we were well into the fight, and our first reaction was, oh no, and then when we read the decision, we said, oh yes. The Supreme Court ruled that it is okay to take property for the purpose of economic development. In other words, if the government wants to take a Motel 6 and hand it off to Ritz-Carlton because the latter will provide more taxes, that's okay. However, when you do use eminent domain, you have to use an appropriate process. In other words, it cannot be a developer-driven process. This whole project has been driven by the developer. This was the developer's idea. He's admitted it. All the political officials involved have admitted it.
Develop Destroy Brooklyn, it's grown over those 3 years into a coalition and the leader of a large movement against that project. We have over 700 volunteers. We're completely funded by well over 2,000 individual donors. We have a complete volunteer legal team of local lawyers.
Bruce Ratner comes in and says, oh, you want me to build an arena? I'll bring you a team, but in exchange I want 23 acres of land. You've got big business and government working together, making big profits. That's their only obligation.
I'm not selling my apartment. I've been fighting this thing along with a lot of other people for 3 years, too many days a week, too many hours a week, and I have not been doing that in order to finally get the price I wanted. I've never had a price in mind. I'm not looking to get rich off an abuse of the Constitution.
The Atlantic Yards plan is currently being reviewed by the Empire State Development Corporation, which would be responsible for issuing state bonds to help finance the project and holds the power to condemn any remaining homes or businesses that haven't been sold to the developer through eminent domain. I recently met with Charles Gargano, who is the chairman of the Empire State Development Corporation and the top development official in the state. Mr. Gargano, if the Atlantic Yards project is approved, as it now stands, it would create 16 very tall buildings, one of which will be over 600 feet tall, 2 football fields. Some critics say that this will dwarf the neighborhood. What do you say?
Well, I think, you know, New York City in general is a city of skyscrapers. We've had plenty in Manhattan. We've had some in other boroughs. We had the Williamsburg Savings Bank that I remember from when I was a little boy growing up in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I don't think that was obscene in any way. Look, all of these things, you cannot stop progress, stop development. I think what we have to do is to make sure we go through the proper process to assess everything from an environmental point of view, from a traffic point of view, from every aspect of it, which we are doing.
Well, you issued a 1,400-page environmental report, and a group called the Council of Brooklyn Neighborhoods hired a group of experts to go over it. And their conclusion was that this report greatly underestimates the impact on traffic, air quality, light, noise, sewage, and general city services. Are they wrong?
Well, all I can tell you is we hire experts as well. And the experts we hire are experts who have been working with us on many, many projects over the last 12 years that I've been involved here as chairman of this agency. I know that we go through a very thorough process. We hire the best consultants, the best experts in this field that we use, as I said before, on all of our projects around this city.
And how do you respond to those who say that this particular project was able to do an end around to the city council, to the local community boards, to the local entities that will be affected by it, most of all?
I don't know what the end around is. I know we have gone through the same process that we do with every mega project, and this is a mega project. We do have the powers of zoning override, but we never do it without the local authority agreeing, in this case the City of New York. And a zoning override is to create a project that benefits the community in our view, in the view of many people who are supportive of the project. So it's not a question of an end around. It's a question of getting things done that sometimes can be tied up in red tape forever.
What is the cost in state and city subsidies and tax breaks?
It's approximately $100 million from the state and $100 million from the city. And you're talking about a project of the order of magnitude of more than $4 billion, between $4 and $4.5 billion.
Right, and some tax exemptions as well.
There are some tax exemptions as well, yeah.
Now, what is the estimated gain in economic terms to the city and the state if this project were to go through?
Well, it's huge. It's in the billions of revenue coming into the city and state. So clearly, all of these projects are evaluated on in a number of ways. How they impact the community, how good is it for the city and the state? Is it going to be a drain on the budget of the city and state, or is it going to add revenue to it? So all of these things are considered.
Some individuals, some lawyers, some journalists want to find out exactly how you came up with the figures of the gains and losses, and they asked for documentation through the Freedom of Information Act. But the Economic Development Corporation that you serve has refused to give it to them. How come?
Well, first of all, what they're looking for is internal documents, working documents. That's not something that's foilable. Completed documents, once the project is approved, once we have completed the negotiations with the developers, they will all be public record. So we are now still negotiating. And when you're negotiating, you don't open your cards up to who you're negotiating with. It's that simple.
There are a number of people who have refused to move from the site where the Atlantic Yards project would be built. What are you going to do with them if they continue to refuse to move?
Well, first of all, we have offered all of the people who are going to be relocated. Number one, they have the ability to move back into the project itself. We will provide relocation costs. We have hired relocation experts, consultants, that will assist them in their relocation efforts. So we're providing everything that we
But as you know, some people are saying they're not going to move no matter what you give them.
Well, that's always the case. So
then what are you going to do with them?
We understand that. We will deal with them. We will work with them. We will use every expert that we have to deal with their problems, their concerns. There's always going to be a few. There's no question.
Are you willing to declare eminent domain and push them off the territory?
We're not using eminent domain at this point in time. I believe there was one instance where we might have, but it wasn't necessary. It was done in a friendly condemnation. We'll look at that at the appropriate time. Right now, it is not our intention to use eminent domain. It is our intention to work this out with those families and let them know that this new project will be very good for them in terms of what will be available to them, on an affordable level market rent rate.
Well, you issued a blight study, and my question is, by the very issuance of a blight study, doesn't that imply that you will ultimately use eminent domain if you feel you have to?
It might imply that, but keep in mind that we only use eminent domain when it's for the public good, a public benefit. We have declared this a blighted area, and there's no question in anybody's mind that drives around there or walks around there that a lot of the site is. I'm not going to say that that gives us immediately, puts us in a position to use eminent domain. I think that is an important first step to look at whether it is a blighted area.
How can you declare a site blighted that has apartments of over $750,000?
Well, number one, you know, I heard the same story when we were using eminent domain on 42nd Street. There was drug sales, prostitution, all kinds of illicit activity going on, and people criticized us then and said, well, why? This is America. This is a democracy. Why are you condemning those properties? And you have to look what's for the public benefit, and look at 42nd Street today. Now, it is true, not the entire street was blighted, but a major portion of it. Look, I know this site for 50 years. I grew up in that area, and this site has laid dormant. It's a rail yard, a big
Part
ditch.
of it is, but we did a report on it about 2 years ago. There's some beautiful apartments, and it's on the way up. It was on the way up, wouldn't you say?
Well, let me tell you, the order of magnitude of this project and the improvements that this project will bring about to the people of Brooklyn and that particular neighborhood in terms of shops, in terms of the apartments that I refer to, 8 acres of open space, parks, beautiful amenities for this whole area. This is not just coming in, throwing up buildings and going home. This is a question of building an entire community that will benefit all of the people from that area.
And where is the process now?
The process now, we completed our public forums, our hearings. In fact, the hearing that was extended 1 week ended on September 29th, last week. Now we're reviewing all of the comments, all of the concerns, and we're trying to address all of them. When we are satisfied that they have been addressed, and the staff and consultants are all working on this, all different types of experts. And once that is accomplished, it will then come back to the Empire State Development Board of Directors for approval or affirmation once again. But there's still a process to go through.
As we've seen, you're a supporter of this project. So the question has to be asked, is there really a chance that the Empire State Development Corporation won't approve the development of the Atlantic Yards?
Well, let me tell you the process here. You know, I don't think it's fair to try and categorize this as there's a project that we want and we just want to get it approved. We have been working with the developers to lower the size of the project. Now the project has been reduced by 8%. And we talk to the developer about increasing the size of the park, the amenity. We're doing all of this all of the time. That's what we work for. We work for a common ground, something that the developer can live with and not walk away from a project and say, well, too bad, we can't do it. The public sector doesn't want to be a partner with us. That's what happened 50 years ago with the Brooklyn Dodgers. We're trying to find a common ground here where we can go through a process that gives us the best possible project, both for the developers, for the community, for the state of New York, and the city of New York.